The obsidian walls of the Zapirian High Command Chamber hummed with power, their polished surfaces reflecting the holographic displays of 100 conquered worlds. Overlord Vexil lounged on his command throne, silver scales glinting under the chamber's crimson lighting as he studied the latest intelligence feed. His claws tapped impatiently against the armrest, each click echoing like a gunshot in the cavernous hall. Admiral Crax stood beside him, cybernetic eye whirring as it processed the data streams. His mandibles twitched in amusement. This is what the Federation warned us about. These humans. The hologram flickered, displaying grainy footage of primitive Earth technology, smokestacks belching pollution, clunky rockets struggling to escape gravity, blocky computers with flickering screens. A burst of laughter rippled through the assembled warlords. Scholar Yith hovered near the back, his 4 hands nervously adjusting his data slate. The elderly historian's frills flushed pale blue, a sign of discomfort among his kind. "My overlord, perhaps we should—" Vexil silenced him with a raised claw. "Look at them," he sneered, zooming in on a human city. "They still use wheels. Their greatest weapons split atoms like children cracking nuts." The hologram shifted to show a nuclear explosion, the fireball pitiful compared to Zapirian plasma bombardments. Crax snorted, his armored carapace rattling. "Their ships are slow, their armor brittle. One volley from our lances and they'll be space dust." A younger commander, Zektal, leaned forward eagerly. "Their data networks are laughably vulnerable. My infiltration drones report they still use passwords." More laughter. Vexil rose from his throne, his tail lashing. "The Galactic Federation cowers before these hairless apes. Pathetic," he gestured, and the star map shifted to show Earth, a blue-green speck surrounded by flickering defense satellites. "We will take their world within a cycle. Let the Federation watch as we break their precious humanity." Crax activated his wrist projector, displaying Earth's orbital defenses. "Their largest warship carries railguns." "Railguns, my overlord. We phased out kinetic weapons 10,000 cycles ago." Yith cleared his throat. "With respect, the archives suggest—" "Enough." Vexil's roar shook the chamber. "You dig through dead civilizations' warnings while we make history." He turned to Crax. "Ready the dreadnought armada. I want their surrender before their next sunrise." Crax saluted, fist over his primary heart. "And if they resist?" Vexil's fangs glistened. "Glass their cities, burn their forests, let their last sight be our shadows blotting out their sun." As the warlords dispersed, Yith lingered, staring at the hologram. The footage looped, humans walking crowded streets, driving crude vehicles, staring at the sky with naked eyes. No plasma shields, no warp signatures, just flesh and bone and stubbornness. His data slate chimed. The screen displayed an ancient Vorak glyph, recently decrypted. The translation pulsed ominously. "Beware the soft ones. They weaponize chaos." Yith's frills darkened to violet. He looked up just as the chamber doors sealed behind the last departing warlord, leaving him alone with the ghosts of dead empires and their unheeded warnings. The obsidian doors of the archives of the Forgotten groaned as they parted, revealing a cavernous vault that hadn't seen light in millennia. Scholar Yith's 4-fingered hands trembled as he adjusted his breathing apparatus. The air here tasted of dead civilizations. "By the void," muttered Admiral Crax, his cybernetic eye whirring as it scanned the towering shelves of crystalline data cubes. "This place reeks of defeat." High Overlord Vexil strode forward, his silver scales glinting in the pale glow of floating orbs. "Find me what we came for." "Scholar, I won't waste cycles on dust and ghosts." Yith's frills flushed blue with anxiety as he navigated the labyrinth. His claws clicked against an ancient terminal, its surface etched with warnings in a dead language. "My lord, the Vorak archives are troubling. Their last entries speak of—" "Skip the dramatics," Crax snapped, kicking aside a shattered drone. We came for tactical assessments, not bedtime stories. The terminal flickered to life, projecting a hologram of a bipedal figure. Smooth skin, no scales, no claws. Yith's throat pouch tightened. They called them hairless apes. The Vorak were the most advanced civilization in the galaxy before. The hologram shifted to show cities burning, Vorak dreadnoughts breaking apart in orbit. A rasping voice echoed from the past. Beware the humans. They weaponize chaos. They turn your strength against you. Vex's Dale lashed. Riddles. The Vorak fell to civil war. Everyone knows this. Yith tapped another crystal. The projection changed. A human standing atop a mountain of Vorak corpses, holding a crude explosive device. The records claim humans used chemical explosives to trigger a chain reaction in Vorak plasma cores. They didn't outfight them. They out-thought them. Krax barked a laugh. Superstitious nonsense. Our shields are 10 generations beyond Vorak tech. Humans still use radio waves for communication. A new image materialized. A human child assembling a weapon from scrap metal. The Vorak voice whispered, "They learn, they adapt, given time. They will turn your own tools into your coffin." Vex's Zill smashed the terminal with his tail. The hologram shattered into blue shards. Enough. The Vorak were weak. Their fear stains these walls like their blood stained their homeworld. He turned to Krax. "Ready the dreadnought armada. We burn Earth within the cycle." Yith hesitated. "My lord, perhaps we should. Perhaps nothing." Vexil's claws dug into Yith's shoulder, drawing Ekor. "You forget your place, scholar. Humans have no plasma shields, no warp cannons. They huddle behind their pathetic moon, praying we'll overlook them." As they stormed out, Yith lingered. His foot brushed against a fallen data cube. It activated, showing a single human word flashing red, Prometheus. The cube crumbled to dust in his hands. Above him, the last intact hologram flickered, a Vorak scientist screaming as his own reactor turned against him. The final whisper followed Yith into the corridor. "They don't fight fair, and that is why they always win." The alarms blared through Lunar Command Hub, their shrill wails echoing off the reinforced titanium walls. General Lisa Hayes strode through the chaos, her boots clicking against the metal grating. Engineers scrambled between workstations, their faces illuminated by the flickering blue glow of holographic displays. "Status report," Hayes snapped, her voice cutting through the noise. Dr. Elias Carter looked up from his console, his wild gray hair sticking out in every direction. His lab coat was stained with coffee as usual. "They just crossed the Kuiper Belt," he said, tapping the screen. A cluster of red dots pulsed ominously. Zapirian signatures, big ones. Hayes clenched her jaw. Time to intercept. Captain Ryan Blake leaned against a nearby terminal. His flight suit unzipped at the collar. He flashed a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. 12 hours, give or take. Their engines are fast, but they're not subtle. We've been tracking them since they left warp. Hayes turned to the main display. Earth hung in the center, surrounded by a fragile web of orbital defenses. Too fragile. The Zapirian fleet outnumbered them 3-1. "Activate Project Prometheus," she ordered. Silence fell over the command center. Even Blake's smirk faded. "You sure about that, General?" Carter asked, his fingers hovering over the console. "We've never tested it at this scale." Hayes didn't blink. "We don't have a choice. They think we're primitive. Let's show them exactly what primitive looks like." Blake let out a low whistle. "Hell yeah. Time to show them why we don't build Dyson spheres." Carter exhaled, then punched in the authorization codes. The console beeped, and a deep resonant hum vibrated through the floor. Somewhere beneath Mars, buried in the Prometheus vault, something ancient and hungry stirred to life. Hayes turned to the tactical display, the USN Defiance, Earth's last heavy cruiser, powered up in orbit, its engines flaring to life. Smaller fighters swarmed around it like angry hornets. "Blake," Hayes said, "you're on the Defiance's wing. Don't do anything stupid." He saluted, still grinning. "Define stupid." She ignored him. "Carter, I need the Singularity Core online before they reach Mars. No excuses." The scientist wiped his forehead. "It's not exactly a light switch, General, but yeah, it'll make it work." Hayes turned back to the screen. The red dots grew closer. 12 hours, she murmured. "Let's make them regret every second of it." The command center erupted into motion again, engineers shouting coordinates, pilots scrambling to their ships. Somewhere in the chaos, Blake clapped Carter on the back. "Hey, Doc," he said. "You ever wonder what a black hole reactor sounds like when it wakes up?" Carter didn't smile. "Like the end of the world." Blake's grin widened. "Perfect." Hayes watched them for a moment, then turned away. The clock was ticking and humanity wasn't going down without a fight. The first Zapirian dreadnought emerged from warp with a thunderclap of distorted space. Its obsidian hull shimmered with plasma conduits, dwarfing Earth's orbital defense platforms. On the bridge of the USN Defiance, Captain Ryan Blake's knuckles whitened around his command console. "All stations report," Blake barked. The Defiance's crew scrambled at their posts, faces lit by flashing alert lights. "Sir, 73 contacts incoming." Lieutenant Cho's voice cracked. "They're bypassing the outer colonies, heading straight for Earth." Blake watched the tactical display bloom with crimson dots. The Zapirian armada fanned out in perfect formation, their sleek warships gliding past Jupiter's orbit like wolves circling prey. A hologram flickered to life above the comm station, Admiral Krax's cybernetic face sneering through the static. "Human vessels," the alien commander hissed, his voice layered with electronic distortion. "Power down your primitive reactors and prepare for boarding. This is your only warning." Blake smirked. "Funny, we were about to say the same thing." He cut the transmission with a swipe. "General Hayes." Blake turned to the flickering screen from Lunar Command. The general's face was granite. "Hold the line, Captain," Hayes ordered. "Prometheus is almost—" The screen dissolved into static as the first plasma lance struck. The USN Atlantica took the hit head. Blake watched in horror as the massive battleship, pride of Earth's Third Fleet, split open like a ripe fruit. Molten metal spilled into the void, carrying hundreds of screaming crewmen with it. Escape pods blossomed from the wreckage, tiny sparks against the advancing darkness. "Return fire!" Blake roared. The Defiance's railguns thundered. Tungsten rounds streaked across the void, only to disintegrate against shimmering Zapirian energy shields. "Sir, our ordnance is having zero effect." Blake's stomach dropped as the tactical display updated. 12 more human ships flashed red, critical damage. The Zapirians weren't even bothering with evasive maneuvers. They advanced relentlessly, their plasma lances carving through Earth's defenses like a scalpel through flesh. On the surface, cities burned. Tokyo's skyline vanished behind a curtain of fire as a Zapirian orbital strike found its mark. New York's defense grid lasted 17 seconds before failing. "Captain," Ensign Rivera screamed. "The dreadnought, it is turning toward us." Blake looked up through the viewport. The Zapirian flagship, a monstrous wedge of black metal studded with glowing weapons, aligned its prow with the Defiance. Krax's face reappeared on screen, mandibles twitching in amusement. "Your resistance is quaint," the alien admiral purred. "Like insects stinging a god. Shall I demonstrate our mercy?" The Defiance shook violently as something massive locked onto their hull. Warning klaxons wailed. "Gravimetric spike," Cho yelled. "They're pulling us in." Blake gripped his chair as the stars outside began to stretch. The Zapirian dreadnought's belly yawned open, a cavernous hangar bay lined with crackling energy fields. They were being tracked, beamed straight into the enemy's jaws. All hands brace for. The universe exploded in white light. For 3 heartbeats, Blake thought they were dead. Then his vision cleared to reveal the impossible, the Zapirian dreadnought shuddering violently, its pristine hull now scarred by a jagged wound spewing plasma. "What the hell just hit them?" Blake demanded. The answer came through the comms, a familiar voice crackling with static and manic energy. "Sorry we're late," Dr. Carter's voice chirped. "Had to reboot the quantum destabilizer. You boys ready for Phase 2? Outside, space itself rippled. Dozens of human ships flickered into existence around the Zapirian fleet. Ships that hadn't been there a second ago. Their hulls gleamed with strange new geometries, their weapons humming with impossible energies. Krax's hologram reappeared, his cybernetic eye twitching. "What trickery is this?" Blake leaned forward, baring his teeth. "No tricks, Admiral, just good old human engineering." The Defiance's new systems flared to life as the real battle began. The alarms blared through the Prometheus vault as Dr. Carter sprinted down the access corridor, his boots kicking up decades of Martian dust. General Hayes matched his pace, her expression unreadable as the facility shook from orbital impacts. "They're hitting the surface batteries," Hayes said, checking her wrist display. "We've got 12 minutes before they crack the outer shields." Carter skidded to a stop before a massive circular door, its surface etched with warnings in 6 languages. He pressed his palm against the biometric scanner. 12 minutes is plenty. The vault hissed open, revealing a cavernous chamber dominated by a swirling sphere of darkness suspended in magnetic fields. Tendrils of distorted light licked at its edges like flames in reverse. Carter's fingers flew across the control console, pulling up schematics that made Hayes' eyebrows climb. "You turned a black hole into a battery." "Not a black hole," Carter corrected, grinning as systems flared to life around them. 7 nested. "We've been playing with singularity since the phase, just never told the UN." A proximity alert screamed. Hayes' comm crackled. "Defiance to command. We're losing the orbital grid." Cracks just vaporized the Pacific dawn. Blake's voice held an edge Hayes had never heard before. Carter didn't look up from his work. "Tell your boy to hold position. Things are about to get interesting." Hayes opened the fleet channel. "All units, fall back to Lagrange points. Execute contingency Sigma." A chorus of confused acknowledgments came through. On the main display, the remnants of Earth's defense fleet began retreating straight into the Zapirian kill zones. Admiral Krax's face appeared on screen, his cybernetic eye pulsing with victory. "Pathetic," the alien sneered. "Your species dies cowering." Carter slammed his fist onto the final activation sequence. The singularity core flared. Across the solar system, every human ship flickered. Plasma bolts meant to vaporize the USN Defiance passed through it like mist. Blake's fighter banked hard, right through the hull of a Zapirian cruiser. What the Krax's image distorted as his sensors overloaded. Hayes leaned toward the comm. "You wanted advanced technology. Try rewriting physics." The vault trembled as Carter whooped. "Phase. Shift active. We're quantum, entangled with the singularities. Can't hit what isn't technically here." On the tactical display, human ships blinked in and out of reality, reappearing inside Zapirian formations. The Defiance materialized inside a dreadnought's shield bubble, its railgun's firing point. Blake's laughter crackled over the comm. "Oh, you frogs are screwed." Krax's flagship lurched as singularity missiles detonated against its hull, space-time itself warping around the impacts. Hayes watched coldly as the alien's triumphant expression shattered into horror. "Impossible!" Krax screamed. "Your species hadn't even mastered warp when we probed us." Carter finished, adjusting the core's output. "Yeah, about that. Those were decoy colonies. We've been hiding our real tech in plain sight, right next to the nukes and fossil fuels you laughed at." The main display zoomed in on Earth's surface. Dozens of silo doors slid open across the planet, revealing towers that hummed with the same dark energy as the Prometheus core. Hayes tapped her comm. "Newton's fourth law. "Admiral, every action gets a human reaction." Blake finished, his fighter phasing through another dreadnought's bridge. The Zapirian armada scrambled to regroup, but their formations collapsed as human ships danced through them like ghosts. Krax's final transmission was a garbled scream as the Defiance's main cannon tore his flagship in half. Carter wiped sweat from his brow, watching the tide turn. "Told you 12 minutes was enough." Hayes allowed herself a small smile. Save the gloating. Vexil's still out there. Outside, the stars themselves seemed to shudder as humanity's hidden arsenal awoke. The comm channel crackled to life with a burst of static. General Lisa Hayes stood in the center of Lunar Command's war room, her reflection staring back from a dozen darkened screens. The holographic projector hummed as it established the link. Across the void, the bridge of the Zapirian flagship materialized, a cavernous chamber of glowing consoles and silver. Scaled warriors frozen mid-snarl. High Overlord Vexil's slit pupils dilated as the connection stabilized. His forked tongue flicked out in amusement. "So the soft-fleshed commander finally speaks. Come to beg for mercy." Hayes didn't blink. "No, I came to explain your mistake." Laughter rippled through the alien bridge. Admiral Krax leaned forward, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused. "Your pitiful fleet burns. Your world trembles. What mistake could we possibly have made?" The general tapped a command into her wrist display. Behind her, the massive main screen lit up with centuries of human history. Wars, revolutions, moon landings. "You studied our technology but not our history. That was your first error." Vexil's claws tapped impatiently against his throne. "History is written by victors. Soon, we will rewrite yours." Hayes smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "You think because we didn't build Dyson spheres or warp gates that we're primitive, but you never asked why." The screen changed, showing grainy footage of 5th century Earth, mushroom clouds blooming over deserts. "We discovered nuclear fission before we left our atmosphere, created AI before we cured cancer. Every leap forward came with equal destruction." Krax snorted. "Child's play compared to plasma lances. Perhaps." Hayes' fingers danced across the controls again. The display shifted to show the smoking ruins of human cities after the initial Zapirian bombardment. "But you made a second mistake. You attacked our homes." On the lunar surface, deep beneath the regolith, Dr. Carter whooped as another set of systems came online. His fingers flew across the quantum interface, equations scrolling too fast for any normal mind to follow. "That is it. They're all locked in." Hayes didn't turn at the sudden cheer from her science team. Her voice remained calm, measured. "You see, Overlord, humans have a peculiar trait. The harder you push us." The lights in the war room dimmed as enormous power readings spiked across the system. "The harder we push back." The holographic feed flickered. For the first time, uncertainty flashed across Vexil's scaled face. "What are you?" Captain Blake's face suddenly appeared in a secondary window, his fighter's cockpit reflecting the eerie blue glow of the Prometheus drive. "Hey, lizard breath, let me explain Newton's fourth law." His grin was all teeth. "Don't piss off humans." Alarms blared across the Zapirian flagship. Krax spun toward his sensor officers. "Report." The trembling technician's voice cracked. "Human vessels. They're appearing inside our formation, bypassing shields entirely." Hayes took a step closer to the hologram. "Final mistake, Overlord. You assumed we'd fight by your rules." Behind her, the main screen displayed real-time footage of the USN Defiance materializing point. Blank behind a Zapirian dreadnought, its railguns already cycling up. "But humanity doesn't conquer. We survive, and we always fight back." The transmission cut as the first singularity missile found its target. On the lunar surface, Carter collapsed into his chair, laughing like a madman. Hayes finally allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. The war room speakers crackled with Blake's whooping battle cry as human ships tore through the stunned alien armada. Somewhere in the chaos, a single Zapirian voice could be heard screaming over the comms. "They're everywhere!" The Zapirian fleet hung in space like a swarm of obsidian daggers, plasma lances glowing with pent up annihilation. Admiral Krax watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Human ships burned. Human stations drifted in pieces. The battle was already won. Then the USN Defiance winked out of existence. Krax's cybernetic eye twitched. Sensor malfunction. Before his crew could answer, the Defiance reappeared inside the formation of the Dreadclaw, Krax's flagship. Its railguns fired point blank. The Dreadclaw's shields flared and died. "Impossible," Krax roared. "They don't have phase tech." On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Ryan Blake grinned as alarms blared. "Singularity drives online. General, we're rewriting the rulebook." General Hayes' voice crackled over comms. "All ships, execute Prometheus Gambit." Across the battlefield, human vessels flickered like ghosts. One moment, they were crippled, drifting. The next, they were behind the Zapirian lines, guns blazing. The USN Atlantica, its hull still smoldering from earlier hits, phased directly beneath the void spike. Its remaining missiles lanced upward, punching through the dreadnought's unshielded belly. The void spike detonated in a fireball that lit up the black. Krax's claws dug into his command throne. Return fire full spread. Plasma lances streaked toward the Defiance and passed harmlessly through it as the ship phased again. Blake's laughter echoed over the open channel. Newton's fourth law, Krax. Don't piss off humans. High Overlord Vexil's hologram flickered onto Krax's screen, his silver scales dull with panic. "What is happening?" Krax had no answer. His sensors showed human ships everywhere and nowhere, phasing in and out of reality faster than targeting systems could lock. The Defiance materialized above the Dreadclaw's bridge, its railguns charging. "Evasive!" Krax screamed. Too late, the Defiance fired. The Dreadclaw's viewport shattered. Atmosphere roared out, taking Krax's last breath with it. Blake didn't celebrate. He banked hard, his fighter spinning through the debris field. "All units, converge on the Doomhammer. Let's end this." A dozen human ships phased into existence around the Zapirian flagship. The Doomhammer's shields flared under the barrage, its hull buckling. Inside the Prometheus vault, Dr. Carter watched the battle unfold on flickering screens. His fingers danced over the Singularity Core's controls. Energy spike in 3-2. Space itself warped around the Doomhammer. A black hole the size of a fist bloomed in its heart. The dreadnought imploded, its remains crushed into nothingness. Vexil's transmission cut through the chaos. "All ships retreat, fall back to," Hayes' voice overrode his. "No quarter, no mercy. You came to burn our home, now burn with it." Human ships phased after the fleeing Zapirians, hunting them down like wolves. The Defiance locked onto the Night Fang, its last torpedo armed. Blake exhaled. "For Earth," he fired. The torpedo streaked through the void, phasing in and out of reality until it punched through the Night Fang's engines. The ship detonated in a silent firework of molten metal. One by one, the Zapirian fleet died. On what remained of the Dreadclaw's bridge, Krax's corpse floated amid the ruins. His last thought, had he been alive to think it, would have been of Scholar Yith's warning, "Beware the hairless apes, too late." The bridge of the USN Defiance was silent, except for the steady beep of damage reports. Captain Ryan Blake leaned back in his chair, the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. His fingers traced the fresh burn mark along the armrest, a souvenir from their last maneuver. "All Zapirian vessels have either retreated or been destroyed," Lieutenant Chen reported, her voice hoarse from shouting orders during the battle. Their flagship warped out with heavy damage. General Lisa Hayes stood at the panoramic viewport, watching the wreckage of the Zapirian armada drift in the void. Twisted hulls and shattered plasma cannons glittered like broken toys under Sol's pale light. "Casualty report?" she asked quietly. 17 ships lost, Chen answered. "But Earth's orbital defenses are already rebuilding. Mars Command reports the Prometheus vault is secure." Dr. Elias Carter burst onto the bridge, his lab coat singed at the edges. "You should have seen their faces when we phased through their shields," he grinned, wild-eyed. "Their sensors couldn't even comprehend a black hole reactor." Hayes didn't smile. "They'll be back with reinforcements." Blake spun his chair toward her. "Let them come. Next time, we'll hit them with the real toys." A sudden alert blared across the comms. An encrypted transmission flickered to life on the main screen, an unfamiliar frequency, pulsing with alien encryption. Scholar Yith's gaunt face appeared, his silver scales dull with exhaustion. "Humans," he rasped, "you have made a grave error." Hayes crossed her arms. "We defended our home. That is no error." Yith's frills trembled. "The Zapirian Dominion was but one claw of the Federation. They will return with the entire armada. The Vorak were right. You are chaos given flesh." Blake leaned forward. "Tell your Federation something for us." Yith hesitated. "What message?" Hayes answered for him, her voice cold as deep space. "Newton's fourth law applies to them too." The transmission cut abruptly. In the silence that followed, Carter exhaled sharply. "So, what now?" Hayes turned back to the viewport. Earth hung in the distance, its blue-green surface marred by the scars of battle, but still whole, still defiant. "Now," she said, "we prepare." Blake tapped a command into his console. The Defiance's engines hummed to life, their new singularity cores pulsing with barely contained power. "Where to, General?" Hayes didn't hesitate. "Wherever they're gathering. We don't wait for war to come to us." Chen input the coordinates. Mars Command had provided them hours ago. A Federation staging area 3 jumps away. As the Defiance pivoted toward the jump point, Carter chuckled. "You realize we just rewrote the rules of warfare, right?" Blake smirked. "Nah, we just reminded the galaxy that humans make the rules." The ship lurched forward, space twisted, and then they were gone.